Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our webinar today, which is Repositioning Your Pair Mix, How to Reframe Sales and Marketing for Maximum Impact. Today, we'll be discussing how you can evolve your community's sales and marketing strategies to impact sales, census, and revenue. Before we begin, just a little bit of housekeeping. All attendee lines have been muted, but you can submit questions by using the Questions tab within the GoToWebinar control panel. We'll get to as many questions as we can at the end of the presentation. My name is Melissa Caravella. I'm Vice President of Client Services here at Creating Results, and I'll be serving as today's moderator. Our speaker today is Kimberly Hulett, President of Creating Results. Kimberly brings our clients a unique perspective due to her extensive experience leading the sales and marketing efforts for numerous for-profit and not-for-profit organizations. Before joining Creating Results, Kimberly was Vice President of Sales and Marketing at LifeSpace Communities, the seventh largest not-for-profit senior living provider, overseeing the organization's strategic marketing, sales, and communications initiatives for 12 communities in 7 states. And just a little bit about Creating Results for those of you who are not familiar with us. We are a strategic marketing agency headquartered in Virginia with clients throughout the US. Our focus is everything mature consumers experience, and our team has served as the marketing department for 55 plus builders, developers, and senior living communities of all sizes. Today we're going to be discussing several areas of sales and marketing as it comes to doing sales and marketing during a repositioning. So first we're going to talk a little bit about market conditions with regard to repositions, the process for making the shift in sales and marketing. We'll also review several insights and examples, and then of course answer any questions that you may have. So with that, I will hand it off to Kimberly to set the stage.
Great. Thank you very much, Melissa, and good afternoon, everybody. We are happy to have you joining us. And I am going to dive right into what about the market these days has us even talking about repositioning, especially repositioning within senior living. Basically, what we're experiencing, and many of you may be experiencing, is that market conditions in senior living are continuing to be impacted by government reimbursement programs and affordable care organizations' focus on decreased lengths of stay and government managed programs trying to decrease costs by bypassing skilled nursing and nursing homes and having their patients and their clients receive care in other ways. There's many at-home programs out there in the market right now, and those products are entering the space, causing this revenue impact. This is causing a shift from high reimbursement Medicare to low reimbursement Medicaid, making skilled nursing the care level that is primarily responsible for the biggest year-over-year decreases in revenues these days. This shift, and you'll see this quote here that speaks to this shift. This shift is necessitating senior livings, especially continuing care retirement communities, needing to reassess their care level and ultimately payer mix. Continuing care retirement communities that have had a higher ratio of healthcare or skilled nursing beds than private pay care levels, such as assisted living and independent living, have been forced to reassess the care level mix and to reposition their community with fewer nursing beds and more independent living and or assisted living accommodations to positively impact private pay revenue and make up for the revenue losses in nursing. In fact, you can see here that according to a study published by Ziegler, this study was published in early 2018, that 3/4 of the Ziegler top 150 senior living organizations were planning to reposition or expand in 2017 and 18. That's the majority, obviously, of the senior living Ziegler top 150. The repositioning we have experienced as a sales and marketing agency over and over again are our partners going through reductions in nursing beds to minimize the revenue dependency on an underperforming payer source and to increase the private pay revenue mix. So let's talk about how this shift needs to be approached. And the main subject matter in this shift is around sales and marketing, not just the reduction of beds. So if we go back to sales and marketing, the shift, if we can go back to that slide, we're going to talk about how we make that shift. The challenge in this repositioning is that the simple reduction or elimination of nursing beds is not going to single-handedly solve the revenue dependency problem. Many of these organizations that are repositioning to a higher dependency on private pay and therefore independent living were founded decades ago and were originally known as the leading nursing home in the area. Simply reducing beds does not and has not eliminated that market knowledge of the organization as a nursing home or an organization with great care. A reduction in beds can also mean a reduction in the workforce, and this creates a climate that is ripe for negative publicity. There are also many factors that need to be taken into account above and beyond the financial dependencies and health of an organization. So as we look a little further as to why make the shift, this is where the impact on your overall brand, your target audience, and ultimately how you market your organization comes in. Reducing the dependency on and size of the nursing side of your organization ultimately changes your target audience. If you now need to focus more on increasing independent or assisted living census, you are now marketing to a completely different target audience than you were previously. If you are targeting a different audience, you will ultimately need to change all the ways you go to market. What your marketing says, who it targets, how the community is experienced, just to name a few of the things that would need to change. It's important to understand that this is not an overnight change. For many organizations, it will take 12 to 18 months to fully make the shift. It doesn't mean you need to wait that long to see the results, but that it will take time to change how the market sees you and to operationalize some of the changes we'll discuss here today. Our focus today is moving beyond the financial revenue mix and the bed reduction or elimination and moving toward positioning to internal mindsets, external positioning, and sales approaches that will fully realize the needed change in payer mix and the maximum positive impact on revenue and overall financial position of the organization. So to change the way the market sees your community and the way you see yourself, it requires a fundamental transformation, usually from care-based mindset to a residential-based mindset, which is reflected in everything that you do. When we think of that change in mindset, there are 5 key milestones you should address as part of your repositioning. I'm going to take these 5 that you see on the screen here and break them down a little bit. The first, external brand perception, is referencing how the market knows you today and your efforts to change that market perception or awareness. The second, internal brand perception, is how your workforce sees you and the paradigm shift employees must undergo to realign their approach and behavior to the new realities. The third, messaging and market positioning. This is how messaging, which are all the touch points of your organization, how the messaging and those touch points need to change to reach the new audience and realize the benefits of the repositioning. And fourth, marketing strategies. So marketing strategies are referencing any new strategies to attract the new audience and change the overall awareness of the organization in the market. And finally, number 5, we'll be looking at adapted sales approaches to positively impact the private pay revenue goals. So when creating results thinks of brand, we look at what your organization is uniquely suited to provide and what your competitors are not providing. But we cannot stop there, and we do not stop there when we're exploring brand. Marketing something that you are good at providing and your competitors are not good at providing is not enough in and of itself. If your target audience doesn't value it, you're not going to gain that desired market share. Therefore, as you head into a repositioning, you need to learn the current brand perception of your organization. Your brand is what you offer that no one else offers and that the market values. To find out how your brand is currently being perceived by the market, you will want to conduct significant research. This research is most powerful in the form of aided and unaided surveys of various audience segments. And when you think of these audience segments, you want to think about the care levels that you are repositioning toward. So you are going to want to be conducting these surveys with targeted prospects, current prospects, lost leads, residents, referral sources, and other applicable stakeholders. To find out what you offer that no one else does requires assessing the current market and competitors and those things that you can truly hang your hat on. This research will show your organization where you need to go and the work ahead. So we're going to try to make this a reality for you. And in order to do that, we're going to start with an example of a transformation. And then we're going to dig deeper and discuss how to specifically accomplish this transformation. So while we would share, and I think you all would agree, that a brand is so much more than an ad, it's easy to see the difference visually in this example that you're seeing on the screen. For the ad on the left, we've cropped out the name to protect the innocent. And this ad on the left, the first ad, talks about challenges and solutions and how difficult aging is and how the provider offers a helping hand. If you look at the ad on the right, the second ad, that talks about a new kind of retirement living. It's bright and fresh and leaves you curious to learn more about this new beginning. It's illustrative of a migration from care or clinical-based approach to a more aspirational or residential approach. More specifically, once you know what your brand is, you'll want to determine what your goals are. For most communities undergoing a repositioning, that means shifting from a clinical or care-based brand, like we see in the first ad, to an aspirational or residential brand, like you see in the second ad. And it also requires usually a big migration from leading with care to leading with lifestyle. So, how do you get from the first ad to the second? We're going to try to help you out with that here through a couple of graphics. It does require a lot more than just changing your creative. It means you have to think about all of the tools you're using in all of the ways people see you, from signage and wayfinding to internal forms and external communications, just to name a few of the ways that you touch the general public from inside your organization. The research we discussed is the starting point for creating an overall brand communication strategy. The insights you gain from surveying the market and researching your competitors will help you identify your brand pillars and your unique selling propositions. Next, you're going to want to look at those insights and the unique selling propositions, and they are then distilled into a brand promise and a positioning statement. They're also distilled into voice and tone and core messaging statements. This is all how your internal team will talk about your community. Those core messaging statements may need to include guidance for your public relations team as well. We mentioned before, if you need to lay off staff in one area and hire in another, for instance, you may need to prepare for potential blowback or negative press from the larger community. A good reason to prepare your public relations firm. Then comes the internal rollout, followed by the external rollout, and measurement and refinement. This rollout is not simply the rollout of a visual identity package. It is a rollout and training around change mindsets, behaviors, language, and approach. So let's dig into that rollout. Once you've decided who you want to be, you then have to change how your organization sees itself before you can change how others see you. You can say that you're focused on residential products, for instance, but if nothing changes about how your employees are measured or incentivized, how they talk about the products they're representing and processes with each other, or how they view their prospects, then nothing will change in the way they convey the brand to others. So it even gets down to simple things like the words you use matter. The words you use, for instance, have a big impact on internal and external perception. As we dig into those words, does the receptionist transfer calls to admissions, or do they transfer calls to sales and marketing? Do you refer to your accommodations as units or apartments? Is it a facility or a community? Is your remaining nursing neighborhood, it might still be there, it might simply be smaller. Is it the infirmary, which we have heard in our markets out there? Is it the nursing home, or is it now being referenced to as the healthcare center? Does the staff wear scrubs or business casual clothing? What do their name tags look like? How people refer to themselves, what they wear, how they feel about their job, and its purpose all impact the internal brand culture. And when you're thinking about this internal brand culture, not everything will be obvious. Take some time to think about which things lie beneath the surface or are inherent in processes that should change to support your repositioning. Some examples are less obvious items. Do you require your people in residence and independent living to check in with staff daily? If you're renovating an apartment, would you ever consider gas stoves or would you not consider those stoves due to it being a safety concern? Where is care delivered? These are some of the examples of how processes and product features reinforce a care-based mindset and may need to migrate over time. We're also going to look here at adjusting your messaging, and we also reference messaging as positioning. Once you're ready to roll out your new brand communication strategy, you'll want to leverage your community's lifestyle in all of your communications. Remember that it may not matter how old your prospect is or what their health issues are. They may see themselves as a younger, more active person that's inside. I don't know about all of you, but I always think of myself as younger than I really am, and our prospects do too. It's that part of themselves that we're reaching out to and helping to nurture. And this image that you see here on the screen has been a great image and a catalyst for changing mindsets at many of the organizations that we work with, when you can get into the shoes of your prospect and see them how they see themselves and message and position to that. This is also another area around this positioning where I might bring in one of the less obvious examples. And that less obvious example is thinking about your physical plant. If you're repositioning from a clinical or care-based model to a more aspirational or residential-based model, what do the four walls in the physical plant show when a prospect or the general public is coming into your community? It might be the four walls that you're investigating and thinking about and analyzing and deciding to make some changes to, but it could also be how the space is used. If you are in a senior living community where there's been a lot of aging in place in your independent living accommodations, and that means that perhaps home health care has been brought into those independent living apartments, or physical therapy or occupational therapy has, and there's an significant amount of assisted devices around the organization, walkers, wheelchairs, scooters, things like that, that are out in public. This prospect and the image of this prospect seeing the ballerina in the shadow is going to have an adverse reaction to seeing those more symbols of the aging process and those more care-based physical plant features that might exist in your current community before you go through your repositioning. In fact, to bring home that point a little further, according to a recent AARP survey, 95% of those 65 and better would prefer to remain in their own homes. If your prospects don't need to become a resident, they have to want to and even aspire to become your residents. You are competing with them staying in their own homes. Let's go back to that physical plant example. If you've got some, inanimate objects that represent the aging process that are out in the open to a significant degree, that person who is, number one, seeing themselves younger, and number two, wanting to remain in their own home, if they see those, then that's going to force them that much more to want to remain in their own home. So your messaging needs to reflect not the quality of care you provide, but why someone should choose to live in your community. The shift in messaging often takes the shape of migrating from the care you provide and the outcomes that that care provides to your residents to talking more about the life the individual lives today within your community. It brings the reader into an article, for instance, if it's in an article or a marketing piece, and it shares with the reader the lifestyle that that individual is living today. And then once they get further into the article, they'll learn what services help to make that life possible and that fulfilling lifestyle possible. This becomes the fact that messaging is your lifestyle is one that they can't stop thinking about because they're seeing that fulfilling lifestyle. Where, when, and how you deliver those messages leads us to point number 4, which is marketing strategies. So when you're shifting to a goal-based sale from more of a needs-based sale, the advantages include a prospect pool that's larger, they're healthier, more vibrant, There will be less turnover if you're moving in those more vibrant, healthier residents, so they'll have longer lengths of stay in your independent living, allowing you to realize the revenue benefits of having those independent living residents there for a longer period of time. And ideally, you'll have more referrals from friends and drive more referral business to fill your buildings. On the flip side, the sales process becomes longer and more complex. Your competitors may increase, and it may be more expensive to bring leads in and nurture them along the way. You will be competing with the home, as we talked about, and you'll be hearing a lot more, "I'm not ready yet," because the prospect still has the perception that they need to be facing limitations prior to moving your community. As a consultancy and an agency creating results, we have had the privilege to conduct many focus groups and sit behind that double-sided glass. And the biggest takeaway we have had year over year, most consistently, has been that despite changes in naming conventions or imagery, this cohort that we are all looking to serve and have in our communities perceives even the most vibrant and progressive of communities as a traditional nursing home. So our marketing needs to actually migrate that much. You'll want to capture prospects and begin nurturing them as soon as possible with your new story and positioning. So another thing to keep in mind is that today's consumer is highly digital. If you're using more traditional media because you've been told that's where the audience is, consider that 82% of the 65 to 69-year-olds use the internet. 3/4 of them use it daily. And as you can see illustrated here, even the older end of the spectrum is already online. Taking that a step further, 82% of boomers and seniors online use search engines. 54% watch videos. In fact, it's YouTube's fastest growing segment. And we're going to talk more about videos and you'll see them in action a little bit later on. 69% use social media sites daily, with Facebook being the #1 platform. All of this means that digital marketing is more important than ever before. You need to market to prospects where they are, on social media, on websites, on search engines. You need to grab prospects' attention before they are shortlisting communities due to how they feel after exploring your own digital welcome mat. Because digital marketing also means that more of your inquiries may be anonymous, we don't have addresses or phone numbers initially, they are not ready to give us that information yet. That's why experiential marketing becomes much more important for nurturing leads and getting them to engage with you further. Events that showcase your lifestyle are key to marketing your new brand. Leading with lifestyle is the secret ingredient. When planning your marketing strategies, consider how you will reach your audience early on in their journey, how you will engage with them further, and how you will convert them to a sale. So speaking of selling, many times sales teams are going to need help and tools making the shift to an aspirational focused independent living sale. This may mean refocusing both the content and imagery used in collateral, refocusing how services are described and the language they're using with prospects. The sales team will need the skills, particularly in independent living, to guide people to the appropriate level of care. Moving frailer prospects into independent living will only inhibit your ability to attract those younger, more vibrant residents. But it also means you'll experience more attrition and turnover as residents move through the continuum faster than desired. This will result in a self-fulfilling prophecy, and it will not fully realize the shift in revenue. Discovery is also much more important. Uncovering the hot button, the goals, the desires, what will motivate someone to make a change is critically important. Since this is a want and goal-based sale, it is harder to determine what will motivate that lead to take action. Your overall repositioning will likely result in the need for additional sales training. So as we think about sales training and the cost of a sale, as your team moves from a need-based sale to an aspirational sale or a want and goal-based sale, they will need to learn how to work their leads differently. They may be used to focusing on new leads who make a decision quickly. With an aspirational sale, you may need to spend more money than you're accustomed to acquire more inquiries, and the sales counselors will need to understand the long nurturing period required. In the case of independent living, you're looking at a minimum of 18 months to 3 years on average. New leads will not change census today. Those who have been nurtured along the way will. So let's look a little bit deeper into that, to a pretty significant stat. To focus on that point, the statistic of 66 to 80% of your sales will come from leads that have been in your lead base over 6 months, and often much longer than that. New leads ensure that the pipeline is always full to realize the fruits of your labor. But today's move-ins are hiding in your database now. So we've gone over the 5 areas that we were going to focus on, and we thought it would be really helpful to bring these insights and examples to life for you and look at some of the ways it has been applied across portfolio partners we've had over time when they've entered into a repositioning. So let's take a look at the first one. We have one partner that we've helped over the past where they came to us and leadership had already realized that they were facing some revenue challenges based on the changes in all the federally regulated programs and the changes in nursing, where they were starting to lose revenue in nursing, and they had a high ratio of nursing on their CCRC communities. They had several communities throughout the state of Pennsylvania. And so they came to Creating Results and said, we realize we need to eliminate beds. We realize we need to change our care level mix and our payer mix to have a bigger dependency on private pay care levels, such as independent living. Help us along the way. How do we do this? How do we bring this to fruition? And for this particular client, we did start with the research and really understanding how the market perceived this organization. It was a 100-year-old organization that was definitely known in the market historically as providing phenomenal care, that clinical care-based organization. So to help them get through the downsizing of their skilled beds, which also required downsizing of their staff, we really wanted to look at how do they go to market and how do they become known as a retirement living organization in a more aspirational independent living sense versus in the historical care sense that they had been known. So this first quarterly magazine that you see here on the left is a very well-received magazine that they'd had in the market for a long time. And as you can see on this picture, it is showing a resident. You do see a sign of an assisted device here, and you do see some caregivers spending time with this particular resident. And we're going to show you what the repositioning and the looking at their messaging and telling the story differently resulted in. This is their repositioned cover and content of their new quarterly magazine. So we've migrated from seeing some signs of the aging process and seeing that there may be a significant amount of help needed, and some people might construe the picture on the left that maybe this individual even needs help standing with the walker to steady herself, to this gentleman who looks extremely active, vibrant, fulfilled in his life. And I think we have another recent cover of theirs. They've done a phenomenal repositioning of another resident of theirs who has been passionate their entire life about flying and has flown and has continued to maintain her interest and passion in flying. So again, this organization was to migrate their messaging to be able to tell the story of the lifestyle that the residents are enjoying. Once you're in that story and your target audience is grown that affinity and trust to want to learn more about that, they can learn why the services in your organization affords these opportunities for your residents. So that's one example. We have another example out there that we can share with you of same organization, this time looking at doing an expansion, an independent living expansion in an area where there had not been an independent living community. So again, the focus is on aspirational marketing, where they built a microsite and a landing page, but it's meant to bring you in and have you feel like you're going towards something rather than away from something. Oftentimes in the care-based, more clinical models, people feel like they're giving up independence, they're losing some of their abilities, and so they feel like when they have to move into a community, they may be giving something up. And the idea in this repositioning is to have your target audience understand that they can still be moving towards something, and that's positive and it's aspirational, and it begs curiosity. So for the people that came to this microsite, they were also driven to a landing page. And you'll see in the landing page, it shows what it's a focus on residential. You can see what the community and neighborhood might look at in the imagery, But what's most exciting about this microsite and landing page is you're going to see the results here resulted in 8,300 visitors and 47 VIP subscribers, meaning people who have raised their hand and want to continue to learn about this community in the first 2 months. And in fact, if you narrow this down to the first 23 days, 63 of those 475 subscribers came in the first 3 weeks of this campaign. Here's another example of some migrated positioning. This is another organization that we've partnered with in the past who had 2 campuses in a fairly large geographic town, 2 campuses at different areas of the town. And they too needed to right size their revenue dependency mix. And they needed to move that revenue dependency away from the nursing because of the low reimbursement levels and the underperformance of it towards independent living. So what they did, in fact, when they reduced beds, is they repurposed their nursing space and they repurposed that into 22 new independent living apartments on that campus. And on their second campus, they added an independent living expansion with several brand new apartment buildings that had not previously existed. And you'll see here that in their website, they stayed very true to the lifestyle imagery, to leading with lifestyle, and to leading with the kind of lifestyle that would be afforded at that community. Those particular independent living apartments are being built on a lake. It takes advantage of significant wooded terrain and trails and enjoying the outdoors. So that's conveyed in this new website that they created. And if you look at the results that they got with their website launch, they had a 72% increase in organic inquiries when they relaunched their website in the first 60 days of that launch. I promised you earlier that we would come back to video. So another way to lead with lifestyle and convey lifestyle and to convey that more aspirational message and how people can still be vibrant with their own lives is to definitely take advantage of videos. It can be online, it can be in a variety of different ways that you demonstrate these videos that show the lifestyle that can be afforded at the community. So we've started the video here, and there is sound on this video. I'm going to talk over it. The sound is mostly music and a couple testimonials from a resident, but they're very natural testimonials. I think this gentleman right here says something about every day is Saturday and every night is Saturday night, but you can see that being conveyed in the lifestyle that's being afforded at this particular community. This community, I will share with you, is a 55 plus or an active adult community in Pennsylvania. But we do have very similar videos that a lot of our CCRC clients also leverage in their marketing and in their materials to help convey the lifestyle and nurture their target audience to wanting to learn more and take advantage of that lifestyle. So don't overlook the power of video. The next place we're going to go is print collateral. We talked about sales. Your salespeople will need sales tools. So you're going to want your messaging, your information packets that you give to prospects to be part of that repositioning, to make sure, again, it conveys the lifestyle that can be taken advantage of there in the words that are used, in the imagery that's used. Again, you can see this organization picking up on the natural landscape of where they're built and of the hobbies that the targeted audience enjoys and can still take advantage of within the community. You can see that this continues into the next section of the printed collaterals, even on the interior of that aspirational messaging. A new adventure awaits. You are moving towards something, not away from something. You continue to expand your world. You can continue to try new things. You can continue to experience the lifestyle that you want to experience. The last example we're going to give you actually has several different tentacles to it, if you will. And this is a community organization that is in New England, outside of Boston. And here we're going to be focusing on aspirational, experiential event marketing and how that helps in any repositioning where you're trying to feature a lifestyle and really need to change your revenue mix to more on private pay and independent living. This particular organization in Massachusetts had been around for decades and decades. Their brand had kind of faded into the landscape of the area that they served, and they became known as that. They were on a hill, and they became known as that nursing home on the hill, and their brand just got old and outdated. And this community was planning on an expansion, but they knew they couldn't do an expansion with the brand perception that they had in their market. So they did start with some brand research, and what they realized is they needed to really change how the organization was known, because it was a full-fledged continuing care retirement community with actually a smaller ratio of nursing beds than there were to independent living and the care levels in between. So they had to relook at their marketing and their positioning, and they had to go and depend on inspirational, aspirational event marketing. They called this new experience in this marketing campaign, the True North experience. Really looking at, someone's internal beacon and following that internal beacon and going and finding that. And so they created a lot of event marketing, much of it experiential, very aspirational. The marketing included these formal direct mail invitations that you can see here. The other thing it included that you're going to see a couple samples of here is the course catalog. And this course catalog was full of a variety of events, some experiential, but they were all events that met the persona of the targeted resident that they were looking to attract. And so the course catalog went out. Many of the events were done off-site so they could first create a community of like-minded people that were like-minded with their existing residents. And that community built a trust and affinity with each other. And then they brought the events on campus as well, as the four walls of the expansion got built out, and they continued that True North experience on campus. So you're going to see here that there were demonstrations and talks. There were art gallery openings, there were wine tasting, and as you click through this, you'll see some examples of those, including musical performances, cultural performances, and ultimately, this experiential and event marketing eventually drove tours to the community and the ability for these prospects to get to know the community, experience the community, and convert into sales. So if we can click through this a little bit, you may see the rest of those events taking shape. This is once they moved into the new community, those art gallery openings, the wine tasting, and some musical events. So all of that helped create the demand of, we want to move into this independent living organization. And when they got their four walls built and their expansion underway, really helped convert those deposits faster. So that is bringing some of the ideas about how to go about your repositioning to fruition. And I think, Melissa, at this juncture, we are in a good position to see what questions the audience might have.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Kimberly. If you have a question, there is a questions tab on the GoToWebinar control panel. You can just enter your questions there, and we will read them aloud so that they could be answered. So we do have one question that's come in, and that is, I see the need for research in my organization, but my leadership is very resistant to anything, spending money on things that are not bringing in leads. Do you have any recommendations for how I can gain that buy-in internally?
Okay, that's a great question. So that sounds like someone who recognizes that they might not be getting the independent audience that they need, and maybe lengths of stay are getting shorter with the independent living residents that are being attracted to the organization. And so it sounds like this individual needs some support in migrating the positioning of the organization, migrating the feel of the marketing materials, the sales approach, perhaps even the physical plant, but that you may not have buy-in from leadership yet. So one of the suggestions we have a couple suggestions there. One that immediately comes to mind is almost take a grassroots approach where you can small and inexpensively do your own grassroots survey and surveying the prospects that are coming in and what they're hoping to see in a community. And you can keep track of what they're hoping to see in the community and what they enjoy doing with the lifestyle. Those that are actual prospects, not suspects, but those that are qualified to move into your community and that you want to have at the community, really keep track of that and share that grassroots research that you do with your leadership. You could even keep track of your lost leads and why are your lost leads lost? Why are they making decisions to move elsewhere? What are they not seeing in your community? And one of the things that I took advantage of when I was on the provider side is certainly, especially if you're selling independent living and you're up against a really high attrition rate, meaning a really high rate of I move somebody in and 6 months later or 8 months later, they already need to get the support offered in assisted living. So they're attritioning quickly and you have a back door. You're constantly having to offset attrition before you can even make any headway in census progress. When I was on the provider side, I'd keep track of that length of stay. And if length of stay was getting shorter and shorter and shorter, and therefore my attrition rates getting higher and higher, and therefore my ability to make any headway with census, I'd bring some of that quantitative data to leadership and see if that can help get you buy-in there. Hopefully that helps.
Excellent. So we have another question, and that question is, how long does the initial research phase take?
That's a great question. So creating results, we have experience doing that in a variety of ways because when we approach it, we really want to meet our clients with where they are and how much of in crisis they are with we need to reposition and we need to reposition tomorrow, or we know we're watching the landscape and we know we're going to be repositioning soon. So that research may need to happen really quickly and you may have a little bit of time. We've had really thorough aided and unaided research done and then building of that brand communication strategy with variety and significant layers of market segments that has taken as long as 6 months. We've done it for other people that can be as short as 8 weeks, where we're identifying certain pockets that we survey and then we can apply creating results, experience, and marketing expertise as to, based on those pockets that we've identified and what their brand perception is, how do we need to migrate the brand perception with 8 weeks worth of research. So there can be the lighter version of it because it needs to be due to circumstances and because of what expertise is already shared from the assets that you have at your own community. And sometimes it's had to be a little deeper and longer, going up towards 6 months.
Great. So we have one last question here, and it's of the areas you discussed, which ones do you find that organizations struggle with the most?
That's a really good one. So if we think of external brand perception, we talked about with research, messaging and positioning, marketing strategy, sales approach. I think what we find that organizations struggle with the most is that internal brand perception. So I think organizations readily see, how are we perceived in the market? You know, they go to dinner parties, they share with people what they do for a career, and they hear that out on the street. They can see pretty quickly how their imagery might need to change, or their messaging might need to change, or how their product is even shaped might need to change. But the bigger challenge is that internal rollout of that repositioning to the employees and team members. What do we inadvertently do that might cut off our nose and despite our face in the repositioning? That image of the lady in the wheelchair, seeing her shadow or reflection and seeing the ballerina has been really helpful and eye-opening to organizations that we've worked with, of seeing who they really are trying to serve and market to and how people really see themselves. The language, it's crazy. It sounds small and little, but the language, that all of that, the language, how we talk to people, what we wear, are our name tags looking really clinical or are they looking more residential? Are we, throwing around a lot of acronyms and a lot of more institutional words in our language? That shift of the internal brand perception and that paradigm shift of the mindset that your team members need to make is usually the most challenging and where a significant amount of investment needs to be made from our experience.
Great. Well, that's all the questions that we've received for today. Of course, if you have additional questions, you can always feel free to reach out to us I've included Kimberly's contact information here on the last slide. We will be sending out a recording of the webinar to all of the attendees. So you will receive that via email shortly within the next couple of days. And of course, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. And we thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you.
Thank you.